All right, another special episode today. We're joined. This is a podcast crossover, somewhat. One of my favorite podcasts, and the host of one of my favorite podcasts, Steely Dan fan, you could say.
Oh, yeah.
He's a haver of correct opinions, some could say, and host of the Fedpost. What's up, man? COH.
Yo, what's up, you guys?
Yo.
Yeah,
thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for coming
big fan.
on. We're gonna try to feed people. We feed.
Is this
them.
the first Fedpost crossover, like legit? That we're
Yeah. I mean, we've had a guest from them, but we haven't So we've crossed over in guests before. But this is the first
real stoked on this one. I've been listening to you guys' podcasts actually. I liked the most recently one y'all did with Elliot on Elliot Page. That was great.
Yes.
Elliot Page.
I forgot who that was for a second. But
we don't use dead names.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We sure
We're
don't.
like Elliot. Who? Oh, yeah.
No, we
like
sure
a
don't.
20-minute segment. Yeah.
But just before we get into it, man, like talk about the Fedpost, because man, Fedpost is going crazy right now. I've been listening because I followed CRK for like a long time from my old account where I used my real name and stuff like that, and I followed him for a long time, so I was kind of saw his glow up, you know what I mean? And then I started getting into Fedpost, and like, what's that been like, man? You guys are everywhere now.
Yeah, so so the first time I ever guested on any podcast at all was actually the Fedpost. So I wasn't an original host or member at all of the Fedpost. It started back in March. I think it was CRK, it was Turbo Fucker and Slav.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came on and hosted probably sometime in May, right after like the George Floyd incident and all the protests and stuff happened that weekend. And we actually did an episode about like COVID, lockdowns, and protests and BLM. And we just kind of hit it off and went from there.
Right.
And it turns out Turbo had a different engagement, so he ended up leaving. So I took over that spot there. So it all worked out well. And since then, it's just been it's been great, man. I've been always kind of having these like weird schizo thoughts of like, what's going on with everybody? Like, why is everyone kind of stupid? Like, like we should maybe like form a working class politics. We maybe should talk about this thing. Why does no one talk about this shit? And so I like stumbled onto political Twitter using my like regular account shit. I was actually on Twitter because of Fish Twitter, a big Fish fan as well. So just kind of like jam bands and stuff. And so went from there and just kind of stumbled into politics. And that's kind of how I ended up meeting CRK and went from there.
Damn.
It is kind of wild how, not like we're all coming to the same conclusions or anything, but how we're all kind of vibing on the same tip and just kind of thinking the same thoughts and just being like looking around the same room and going, what's going on? And I know, at the Fedpost and CRK and you guys, it's just when I found you guys, I'm new to Twitter. Glenn's been on a lot longer than I have. And, you kind of fall into those same little traps of like those ideological things. You're looking around, you're like, wait, this isn't really who I am, right? And then once I start fucking with you guys, I'm like, oh, this is actually kind of fun and hilarious. And you guys are like just some of the best out there. I think it's so great, man. Yeah, definitely changed my thoughts on a lot of things in a good way.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's what we're trying to do. I'm not sure how effective we are at it. We're not credentialed, we're not any type of academics or anything. We just got some ideas.
I think it's one of those things where you might catch a lot of flack from the more vocal people, but 90% of the people are silent and agreeing with you. It's one of those phenomenons. That's what I would think, at least, where it's a lot of, where obviously like someone like CRK gets a lot of flack for the shit he posts, but everyone, that he's got this crazy shadow following or whatever, and everyone's just like, this dude's on the ball with all his takes and everything. So I think that's
totally
a lot of what's going on with you guys.
I first got into like kind of looking at leftist Twitter, and I was like, these people are fucking like weirdos. Like they're not in touch with like reality. They're completely unhinged. Like, what the fuck's going on? And then I stumbled upon CRK's account, and I was like, yo, this shit's a little bit like, all right, yeah. I was like, that's what I'm thinking, like all the time. I was like, but this guy's saying he's not a leftist. What the fuck? Like what? And so that kind of is like a great way to kind of get out of that trap of like left Twitter and kind of like find more like-minded folks like online and not just in real life. Because like, I don't know, I talk with my like friends that are just like underclass, working class people, and they get this shit. Like you talk with people and you're like, hey, like, isn't it crazy how like we're forced to stay inside and yet they're not giving us any bailouts or any stimulus to us. And how like Nancy Pelosi turned down a stimulus from the White House right before the election because she said it's not enough. And then now she's supporting this new one that's like half the size right after the election. Isn't that weird? And people are like, yeah, what the fuck? And like, if you dig into this stuff, people are on the same page as us for the most part. So I was looking for a voice to kind of represent that in that sphere, and because there just wasn't one.
No, facts. I think that sums it up pretty well. Like it's weird. You got to break that echo chamber. And I think a lot of people when they listen to you guys, like I think some of them secretly agree, and especially and some of them secretly agree, but they're scared to leave whatever following they've built, especially some of those larger accounts that go at you guys. I'm fascinated by that.
Totally.
I'm fascinated by that, especially someone
with like 80K followers would be like, look at this, bro. And
and I won't name names. They don't need any more shout outs, but like the way I somewhat wanted to reach out to you on this, the way I saw it was, one, you had posted a few things. You were like, hey, we're doing kind of like, food drives kind of thing, something like that. I was like, that's pretty cool. But then I also saw another kind of guy who thrives off attention and shitting on quote unquote post left, whatever the hell that is. And he had basically, you had said something. You had said, I have to do some sensitivity training, racial sensitivity type thing, diversity training at work or something.
Yeah.
And then this dude's like, oh, poor you, PMC worker guy has to do this and this. And then you're like, I'm a fucking farmer, dude. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm like, all right, well, no, this guy gets it. And it was a whole bunch of shit ensued from that. But you're here basically because I think right now this is something that's really fucked up right now, among other things, is like we're trying to change a lot of shit right now, but I think it's going to get to the point where like people are going to starve to death. You know what I mean? Like we have to like make sure people have a heartbeat still, and
totally.
There's a lot of
Nancy
stuff
Pelosi feeds them. She said, dude.
We feed them.
Like, we feed them exactly, and she doesn't.
Yourself,
that's the
dude.
thing.
Check
like she
yourself.
doesn't. Yeah. And so I guess to start this off, like how bad do you think it's gonna get? You know what I mean? As far as like
what I've been wondering too.
Food shortages. And it's not a food shortage because I know we could produce food at the drop of a dime. But as far as people being able to buy food and consume it, like how bad do you think it's going to get?
Yeah, that's kind of a loaded question. So it also depends on kind of what scale of time you're talking about. If you're looking at a macro scale, we're taking a long-term approach. You got to look into factors like peak oil. You got to look into factors like the rising cost of oil and just transportation that's going to occur down the line, not to mention like just environmental decay that's going to cause people to be suffering droughts where they can't grow food, et cetera, et cetera. If you're looking at just oil and transportation, you can see almost a small model of this in Cuba. So Cuba in the 90s, when the Soviet Union pulled out their financial support and their oil trades, they lost 3/4 of their oil import. And so they were forced to kind of undergo their own kind of change there. That was kind of like a self-imposed peak oil where they had to radically change the way they were growing food and producing food. And it didn't really go very well at first, right? Like it came from a place of necessity. A lot of people were starving and it was dire and it was really bad. And here in America, we're maybe one of the most food insecure nations just in the world. And that might come as a shock because we all, there's McDonald's everywhere. There's people that have diabetes. Like it's a big problem. Overweight is a huge issue. So you'd think that, food would never be an issue here, but we don't produce much food here and we don't produce much food locally at all. Especially when you get into the cities and you start looking at places like, highly populated urban centers. So I mean, if there is an issue with transportation, if we're somehow cut off from the outside world and our global trading partners, if we're cut out just as far as like if oil becomes an issue, it could get really, really bad really quick then. I think right now with like COVID and austerity, things are already getting bad. I mean, the homeless population's grown exponentially since the COVID crisis, since all these evictions are going to be kicking in after the start of the year if they don't do anything about it. You're going to see more homeless people, more food insecure people than you maybe have ever seen. And so I think that it's getting bad quick. I don't really know. I don't have a way to quantify how bad it's going to get, but it's going to get bad for sure. And I think it's just going to get bad all the way around. Like, it's just austerity as neoliberalism strengthens its grasp. Like, things are just going to get bleak all the way around. So I think it's important to start reimagining the way that we live and also the way that we produce, especially producing food.
And the irony is, the more we're exporting our neoliberal ways to the entire global south and third world, Africa and India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, it's when it's starting to crumble and fail in the places that it's supposedly helped the most, and we might have more in common than you realize. I kind of come from the leftist thing, quote unquote, from a food background and organics and to a lesser extent permaculture. I know you're into that, and just that whole world, and it really shook me. Just battling, the big ag and Monsanto and all that kind of stuff. And it really struck me once I got into more of the mainstream left, when like Bernie Sanders was popping off, like, back-to-back campaigns and everything, how little grasp the actual left had on these issues, and how they really have complete faith in these, like, they pay lip service to the oil thing and how, Green New Deal and all this stuff. And they might eat like smoothie bowls, for show or whatever. Right. But, they really have complete faith in these supply chains, these corporations, when it comes to medicine, when it comes to, all this stuff. It really, they just want like a socialist overlay on, like, we want to change the label of what we call it.
Subsidized McDonald's.
Yeah, exactly. Like no ethical consumption under capitalism, as I like stuff myself with the McRib, basically. It's literally, they don't want anything to change. They don't want, and there's also, we've talked about this in the pod before, and how there's, and, I get the point that, there's, we do blame the individual for things that the government should be doing, but also to an extent, we do need to change our individual behaviors and actions, on an atomic scale, and in terms of individual actions and choices. That doesn't absolve us of our choices that we make. I don't know if you'd want to riff on that, or if you guys
I'd say like there are definitely going to have to be like cultural changes. There'd have to be personal changes as well, starting at the personal level and as the household level. Most efficient societies throughout time have been able to be subsidiary to where they have sustainable, self-sufficient homes. So households and families meet most of their needs just right there in the home. They're able to grow food, and stuff, medicines and stuff around locally. They're able to get the community that they need and the entertainment that they had into home. And now all that's being commodified, obviously, through capitalism. It's being forced into the market. So, I mean, obviously, there's going to have to be huge changes. I think the issue with like liberalism and neoliberalism specifically, and like this like green wave and green revolution that people and liberals like love to like, pout about, is that, like you're saying, it posits the level of responsibility and the burden at the individual, right? But it's also going to posit the burden of change at the individual as far as negative consequences go as well. And so I think that it needs to be looked at as that is just being one piece of the puzzle. There needs to be overall systemic economic change. There needs to be a material change to the way that our society functions before any type of individual change can really start to make a hold. I think a lot of the issue, like even with permaculture, like I've been getting really into permaculture, and I'm finding a lot of like the cultural aspect of it, because it's like building a permanent culture, that kind of thing. But when you lean into the cultural aspects and not the agriculture, it starts to be a lot more kind of just like bourgeois ideology, where it just kind of talks about like, like we need to change the way we live and the culture and like, and envision a new economy. And it's like, no. We need to change the economy. We need to change the way that it functions, the way that profit is incentivized, and the way that profit's invested. It needs to be invested in the communities so that we can have the support and the ability and wherewithal to make these personal lifestyle changes that are going to need to be vast. Because not everyone can just grow food in their backyard right now. Not everyone has time to do that.
Or space.
Space,
Yeah, it's crazy.
And not everyone's just even even in the most idyllic of societies, not everyone's going to want to grow food, just have
Exactly.
the will to do it. And yeah, I think there is this hobbyist element to the permaculture kind of vibe that I've always noticed. And some people are hardcore with it, and they really are about it, you know, and everything. But yeah, there's a kind of there's some gaps there for sure, I think. And yeah, like culturally that you're speaking of, I've noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah, I find a lot of people try to focus on change at the level of cultural before change of the material.
Right.
And that kind of goes against the whole premise of like permaculture, which is that permaculture is almost like biomimicking in a way. It's kind of taking and observing ecosystems, natural ecosystems and communities and the way that they function, and looking at it on a way, putting it and transposing it over human connection and human societies and how communities of people function and how those systems function, right? And so it's almost like that's kind of a premise of Marxism when Marx took evolutionary theory and placed it into history, and said, you know, society also evolves and goes through changes over time. I think that a lot of this, like these people that are into permaculture, they don't even think of it on that scale, at that macro level, and it takes it out of, everything needs to be a fractal of each other. You need to be at the very bottom level in the soil. Even there's 7 billion microorganisms maybe in just one spoonful of soil. That's as many people as there are in the planet. They all interact. They all are competing constantly and collaborating, and we are doing the same thing, as well as the plants that are growing and we eat and the food. And so you need to be able to look at it within that framework.
Yeah. No, and you got it, like, because it kind of, for this to actually work, right, for us to actually, you know, help feed each other, because the way I look at it is I agree with you that there needs to be a material, like, economic change that needs to happen. I just don't know how that happens, right? Like, how do you get food produced differently? You know what I mean? Like that isn't in your backyard. That
Totally.
isn't a community. Like I don't know exactly how to go about that. You know, I mean, do you have any ideas on that?
It would be a radical change, obviously. It definitely wouldn't come easy. It's not just something that would be able to come at the flip of a hat. In order for it to be fully implemented and truly revolutionary in the sense that it would make lasting change, it would need to come from a place of the working people and just everyday underclass people seizing state power, and the state being organized in as the organ of class war that they can utilize over the bourgeoisie. And then, you know, the rich people keeping us down, that incentivize profit over well-being, over stewardship, over making sure that we have a home to live in, and that we have healthy people to live in it, and being able to completely change the way that we think about production. We need to be able to have worker-owned industries and nationalized industries to where there's not an incentive to make profit,
right,
by throwing away food and shit, so that you can make sure that you have the proper, like, demand and supply curve, or whatever the fuck, you know. There's so much waste. 40% of food in America goes wasted. It goes to landfills. So being able to change the way that the economy functions. I don't know exactly how that would look, the nuts and bolts of it. I know that it would look like worker-owned industries. It would look like in like kind of substituting local production for imports. It would be relying heavily on local communities, and local currencies and local mutual credit systems and things of that nature. So it would be such a vast change, but it is what needs to happen.
right.
In my mind, I think we need to have, I don't know exactly how it would look. I don't know that I obviously shouldn't be the one in charge of it. So like, I don't know what's going on there. And everything just kind of works itself out due to its material circumstances. So we don't know how that change would go. But it needs to be done from the bottom up with the people in power.
Yeah. And what's funny is we don't, this is something that's so, once this really hit home for me, it was just mind blowing on how the food system that we have in place now is the furthest thing from a free market. It's the most socialist aspect of our society, but in the most evil ways, right? Where we literally socialize throwing away 40% of our food and commodity grains and factory farms, and And that's where huge percentage of our budget goes, and besides the military, of course, is creating junk food that just gets thrown away or rots and doesn't get eaten. So we just create this huge, almost like this negative pressure on society, when there is zero lack. Really, lack is an artificial construct when it comes to our most basic needs. And it's so hilarious where, and I'm not saying this would be the ultimate fix, but it would be shockingly simple for the government to say, we're going to subsidize actual food, just give directly to farmers, not to agribusiness conglomerates and soybean futures and, and all, pumping those markets up and everything.
Oh yeah.
So it would be shockingly simple. We could do it. Now that what you're talking about, the bottom up, I think is the more lasting, harder change, where I was reading this thing on how, and this guy was giving this lecture on, we always hear how it's fucked up how we get apples from New Zealand or Chile, right? And how, and I don't disagree with that, but what's crazy, it's even more local than that. Like, it shouldn't even be we get apples from Washington when we live in, Utah or whatever. Yeah. And they were making the point that the like in Georgia and southern states, it used to be a huge market for vegetable production. Mm-hmm. And now it's gotten all pushed on to California and the salad bowl and the, where 90% of the strawberries come from California. There's no real, dank strawberries grow in California, but there's no reason why we can't have that.
Should be their slogan, everywhere. By the way, instead of avocados from Mexico. Just
dank strawberries from Cali. Yeah. So it's, we can really, break this thing down on a microstructure and just, deep, local kind of vibe with that.
Yeah. Realistically, what it would take would be breaking up the big corporations, and then incentivizing local production. Like you're saying, with subsidizing local farms and local production, and then forming local co-ops of people who are farming, like urban agriculture, people who retail markets who they can partner with to sell their crops. It would take small interconnected local communities, like you're saying.
Yeah, and real co-ops too. I'm tired of this. I've noticed this so many times whenever I move to a new town or whatever, and there's always some fucking co-op conspiracy going on. Have you heard of it?
They've co-opted the co-ops.
They've co-opted the co-ops, bro. It's crazy. And they, like, literally, I'll be going into this co-op for, a couple weeks or months or whatever, and then I'll go in and one day and the signs changed and they're like, oh yeah, we're like the same, but now it's like these guys run it and it's like some fucking, it's like Safeway.
Just some
it's
guy in a collared shirt just hitting a piece of paper against his hand up in a fucking ivory tower.
Yeah. And when I lived in upstate New York, and it's the same as everything. They have this board of directors, and it's just it's like all the hippies in town, but they're all like the bougie ass hippies that are like, they're making six figures sitting around not doing any work, and they're not like, we're the co-op, and they're like, you're not doing shit, dude. You're like, you're the reason why this stuff is like $4 more.
That's the story of urban agriculture right there. Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah, and so it's just, and that is I'm not super down on the whole like bougie left thing, because I do think there is some fundamental truth of, in a free market, quote unquote, when you allow people to choose or get, like, the organic market is growing because people choose it. And I think that's that's a market based thing. That's not capitalism. That's not, that's just people making a choice.
Yeah. It's available at grocery outlet now. You know what I mean? Like it wouldn't be there if people didn't choose it.
Yeah. And that's not saying like, that's because capitalism is good. That's just saying that people are choosing what they want to choose. And so I do think there is like 20-year-old college chicks, eating organic is a good thing, and even though it's like trendy or whatever, people are always down on that. But I'm like, it's a good thing. It's like, we need to shift the Overton window.
Yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Yes. It's kind of like how sustainability as a whole has been kind of done that way, to where it's been made into a market. To where now, like, sustainable products is a huge market, ethically grown and ethically raised and ethically fucking whatever the hell. Like, they can just slap that on, and you can get, people have these organic certifications and stuff, but people who grow local food organically can't even get those certifications because they have so much fucking bureaucracy to go through to get those. So at the end of the day, the organic market is just yet another market, and they found a way to capitalize on that type of thing. And that's where, like, yeah, it's like you're saying, it's also beneficial. Like, it's good if people could, start eating locally sourced, organically grown food. And it's not because, like, oh, it'll make you feel better. It will make you feel better, and it's probably better food, but also because of the fact that that's just a better and healthier way to grow for the environment.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly, like, if buying, organic from Chiquita is the right decision, right? Like, I don't think that fucking matters. I wouldn't ever buy organic from a corporation because, like,
Correct.
it defeats the purpose almost. Because, like, a lot of the reason why we got away from just common sense fucking farming and polycultures is that we moved to monoculture farming for industrial agriculture, for all these corporations that are growing massive and massive amounts of one single crop. And they're not crop rotating. They're not adding amendments to their soil. They're not taking care of the soil at all. They're just growing massive amounts of this one thing. They're creating these fucking huge GMO like monster seeds that can withstand Roundup. And then they sell you the Roundup, and then they sell you the fucking seeds that would withstand it. And then the weeds get stronger, and then they have to make new seeds and new Roundup, and they send you that round. And these corporations are what's driving all this, capitalism and the incentive for, profit and capital accumulation and incentivizing greed over just caring about the well-being of not only yourself and your community, but the planet that you live on. That's what's driving all this, right? And it's impossible to combat it without an anti-capitalist critique as well.
Yeah. And you can better believe too that when it comes to industrial organic, like Chiquita or what's on Safeway shelves or whatever, they push it to the absolute limit. They use the shittiest organic pesticides that you can get away with.
How can I was gonna ask just real fast, how, just from somebody like me, you both know a lot more about this than I do. So there's gonna be people that listen to this that I feel like I've said this every episode. So maybe you're sensing a theme here, but how can you slap an organic label on something and have it be different than another organic? I know you got into it a little bit, but like, I don't think a lot of people know that. They literally they've been trained by advertising and just everything to just see. Safeway just literally puts an O. So it's like,
it's just a fucking O.
Yeah. So,
and maybe you can, I'll say what I know. You can speak on this to correct opinion haver, but I know, and I do think it is a low-key conspiracy where a lot of and these just dumb as fuck pro GMO, pro industrial agriculture arguments that they're literally a psyop. They're focus grouped into existence. And where they will critique. They're like, look at organic agriculture. You guys are using these toxic pesticides, and these things are okay to use in organic, and that's bad. And it's like, that's not a problem with biological agriculture. That's a problem with big industrial organic. It's a straw man, right? It's kind
Absolutely.
of and so and they do have a point that these things are just literally. It's a regulation. It's just a dumb government regulation at that point. That's what the Safeway O is, where there's so much better. And I do think you get to a point, I think we're all at that point where we dramatically trust some uncertified small kale farmer over like a Safeway O.
Oh, totally.
Even though he doesn't have you get to that point, I feel. But I don't
Anyone
know.
should
Speak on that though, if you got.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly like the nuts and bolts of specifics on how you get organically certified. I know that it requires a lot of capital. It requires a lot of time. It requires going through the right bureaucratic channels and jumping through all sorts of red tape. And so it's almost only people who are already set up to succeed in corporations that have the capital to do so can even get the certification in the first place, right? And those are going to be the people that are producing at pretty large rates and generally mass producing. And so at that level, it comes down to the certification being making sure that you don't use a set amount of chemicals, like this certain list of chemicals, as long as you're not using those, as long as you're using like these quote unquote organic pesticides, or you're using these amendments that can act as pesticides, or these types of minerals or whatever that you're spraying on it that's not technically pesticide or not technically growth hormone or whatever, you can kind of get it that way. So it doesn't mean that you're like growing it sustainably at all. It doesn't mean that you're even biofarming. It just means that you're not using For the most part, for our practical purposes, if you see organic in a store and it's like Safeway organic, it just means that they're not using traditional pesticides.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, yeah, because I think that's important. I think just somebody like me who, you know, gets off of work and is just like, let me try to eat healthy this week, you know, and let me do, oh, cool. Let me grab this organic thing. And I'm going to pay slightly more for it. So in my head, I think almost the capitalist mentality is I paid a little more for this. Therefore it's,
and that's
it's healthier.
These farmers switch to make more money. Like the big organic, they're not, you know, a lot of them aren't doing it out the goodness of their heart.
Right.
But I do feel that, you know, 9 times out of 10, the organic option, in spite of the propaganda, is better than the conventional option.
Well, in just general organic farming, like it's easier to do just regular biofarming. Like it's so much easier to grow plants when you do polycultures, when you think of it as a full ecosystem and you work on building the soil and growing the soil as well as the plants. And you think of it as an interconnected feedback loop. It's a closed feedback loop. So you have to take care of it as an ecosystem. But once you set it up that way, it grows like a fucking forest does. You don't even have to do much at all. It's almost like Fukuoka talks about do nothing farming. Like once you get stuff set up in this scenario, if you do like a good permaculture ecological build, you don't even have to do much work at all because that's just what nature is supposed to be doing. So it ends up becoming cheaper, labor costs and everything once it's set up.
That's the One Straw Revolution guy, right? Yeah, that book is incredible. It reads like a fucking Lao Tzu, like Tao Te Ching of farming. It's just like that guy was lit, dude.
Totally.
Japanese dude, just like, yeah, he's like, what's that part? There's the part in the book where he's like, he like looks at the greenhouses with the plastic coverings, and he's like, these modern types don't understand that the sun's rays won't fully penetrate, and he's just like shakes his head. He's just like, nah, not about that UV plastic. Yeah.
Totally,
yeah, and he's great, man. Yeah, and even even on the where's I going with that? Even if you're trying to mimic like conventional, like biologically grown but for scale, like carrot production or beets or whatever, right? Even if you're not doing a fully permaculture thing. There are so many little tricks and tips that people have come up with, farmers, where you don't even you can use zero chemicals. You know, like growing seeds specifically for your region and creating your own seeds so that you don't need to weed as much, right? Where there's more resiliency and they don't have to compete with the natural flora of your ecosystem, right?
Yep.
Rather than having one central place doing it, you know, in the Midwest and shipping it all over the world, right? Where you're creating like an epigenetic signature on your seed line. That's just one example. Or just using fire, literally burning weeds as they come up, you know, just like dumb stuff. You're like, why didn't I think of that? You know, and then they've already thought of it. And and that's the other crazy thing is this whole, and I'd love for you to talk about this, the whole Luddite accusation that's thrown at us, people like us, where it's like, you know, if you're permaculture or organic, you're heralding to the past or whatever, and this whole thing is the new thing, the GMOs and everything, without realizing that it's like chemical-free organic agriculture it's on its own technologically advanced trajectory,
absolutely
independent of capital, independent of, you know, big agribusiness and everything, where it's not like it's the same thing we've been doing for the last 500 years. Yeah, we keep the best parts of it, but I don't know. Yeah, I was ranting, but yeah, go on.
I mean, anyone who doesn't learn from history is like, what's the point of living at that point? And like, what's the point of trying to have any type of say in how things should run or how a theory should work or anything if you don't study history, you don't see and learn from the things that work and the methods that do and don't work. I mean, this is kind of like the theory argument and type of stuff, like just paying attention to what worked in the past and utilizing that information and recontextualizing it to modern material circumstances, be it in farming, be it in fucking political theory, it's still valid. Like it's very interesting. Like people, and I get this pushback a lot, especially from people who are like production-minded, industrial Marxist type people too. Like, right? They're like, oh, like we need to develop the productive forces. Yeah. Well, absolutely, yeah. Like that's what capitalism's historic role is to develop the productive forces, right, and keep bolstering them. But this is in itself a development of productive forces. What we're doing is we're saying, hey, okay, there was all this prior knowledge, either indigenous growing methods, either stuff that we've learned now as far as soil composition and soil science, composting methods, all this different stuff that is natural and has been happening naturally forever. It's still somewhat newly being contextualized and newly being discovered by, our like quote unquote modern Western, agriculture. So it's still in itself a revolution, and it's still a step forward. And I understand like the big argument for GMOs and industrial agriculture is a growing need to feed people, right? There's
world hunger. Yeah,
exactly. There's overpopulation. There's scarcity. Blah 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 blah.
It's funny how overpopulation's the cause for like everything evil that gets produced,
right?
Like, it's just like we need to we go hard on the vaccination type stuff. We go hard on stuff like that, but it's always it's overpopulation or
cue Bill Gates for us. We do this, we can get it down by 30%. I think.
That's sicko, dude.
Sicko. And
Bill Gates is like, I'll just, benevolently use all my money to vaccinate everyone and make sure that everyone lives through this pandemic. But, overpopulation is a concern. What the fuck are you talking about, dude?
Yeah, bro.
Those are contradictory things.
And you could literally like just cap your own wealth off and just spread it out to everybody.
And that's
I'm going to give away all my wealth and actually grow it by double amount in like 3 years.
They wouldn't know what to do with it.
It's crazy. It's crazy how I give it all away, and it's like 3 times as much as it was 2 years ago. It's fucking weird how that works, dude.
Well, that's the key to just like how they can retain their money, right? Like how capitalism can keep itself going is they can use charity as a way to cover their own sins and like try to make themselves feel better while also masking the terrible externalities of what they're doing and what they're causing. And that's like what this whole argument of like, oh well, there's so many people, we need to feed all these people and we don't have enough money, we don't have enough resources to do it, there's not enough space to grow the food, blah blah, so we need to make these like crazy chickens that are like 15 times the size of a normal chicken that can't walk, that I don't even want to eat after I look at it. Like that, like most living things wouldn't even come close to eat.
There's a reason it's called KFC now and not Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Right? Totally. And it's like, that's a big argument, is that we need to do that to feed people. But the issue is that that's positing, once again, the issue at the individual level. When really, if we restructured our economy, we would have enough fucking money and capital and resources to be able to produce locally grown agriculture and give people fucking jobs that produce that food. Because we'd be able to reinvest capital into our economies and into our local economies and into the community's well-being rather than just an individual's fucking pocket.
And also, they cause the fucking problem. The people that are, like global warming is going to mean that we need drought-tolerant seeds. It's like your style of agriculture caused the droughts. Like, it's like, this is on you. So it's the same people, not the same people, but the same strain of person, the same mindset of. Yeah,
it's like a Faustian bargain almost. Yes, it's like they're just like, oh, we need to feed more people, so we need to make these GMOs, and then they make these GMOs that have these negative externalities, or like like we need to be able to produce food more productively, so let's like make some type of thing to kill all weeds. They spray all the plants down with weeds, and then they realize, oh, this killed the plants, so they say we need to make stronger plants. They make stronger fucking plants, stronger weeds come along, then it keeps going. It's a cycle that just literally keeps going, and nature's always going to win that battle no matter what.
That's like me. That's like me gambling, actually. Like, I'm like, oh, I lost in the NFL game. Is there any college volleyball going on tonight?
Division II NCAA. We got
any Korean baseball?
KBL.
We were.
That was all we had. That was all we had.
People forget.
That was all we had. People forget the bat flip. The bat flip generation. No, that's exactly how it is. Right? Never forget. Never forget. But they have people in the stands, by the way. They have people in the stands now. Fucking god damn it.
Can we just do a quick COVID segment? I know we're not.
Wait, lit pandemic? You talking about the lit pandemic?
Yeah. No, can we just do? I want to talk about this
trademark
fucking.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and we don't have to say this for more than like 2 minutes. But what's this shit about like Australia partying now? And they
go off. I know you want to.
What the like? I don't get. are we eradicating this thing, or is it gone forever? And like we're having 14 9/11s a day is what they're saying, like, and it's this is such a fucking psyop. I don't get.
Can't be 14 9/11s if we're not allowed in the same building together.
And all these Australian fucks on social media are like, you fucking losers, we handle this shit.
Shut up.
It's like, okay, you guys, are you probably not testing? I don't know what the fuck's going on. I don't know what's going on, but I know that it's not what it's.
I've got no clue about Australia. I don't give a fuck about Australia.
Also, it doesn't exist. Dude, I've read conspiracy theories that Australia doesn't exist. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, it was a prison colony that
It's a British psyop, dude. It's fucking,
it was a British prison colony. So
it's literally the end of flat Earth. It's the fucking barrier.
Kyrie Irving was born in Australia and believes in.
Kyrie Irving is fucking based. Can we just agree on that real quick?
Kyrie check, yeah.
The media is giving him so much hate right now about his he was I'm not talking to the media anymore. Like, fuck y'all for 3 years. I'm not talking to y'all.
Yeah.
And everyone's just losing it. They're like, he's off the deep end. He's crazy. What's wrong with this guy? Dude, he's based to shit. He's an intellectual, my man, Kyrie.
Uh-huh. He's all about the agriculture too, and he saves the NBA from LeBron's extreme beta-ness.
LeBron is Bill Gates. He's the Bill Gates of the NBA.
He's the Bill Gates of the NBA.
No, he is.
He's such a bitch.
Dude, he's cucked by China. Big time,
majorly.
He's the big and let's be real, Warrior fan here.
Yeah.
I was never scared of LeBron James. I was terrified of Kyrie Irving. Terrified.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah.
The guy was a fucking assassin, dude. But what was funny about that is is that nobody wants to play with Kyrie Irving. Nobody's excited except for Kevin Durant.
KD does. Yeah.
Yeah, but Kevin also let's be real, Kevin Durant's the biggest curmudgeon of all time too. So it's that's gonna be the coolest fucking thing of all time. I'm sorry I derailed this think tank, by the way.
No. I think we needed a.
I do that a lot. I derailed the think tank of this podcast.
I'll take any opportunity to shit on LeBron, man.
Oh,
how can you be the iconic basketball player of your era and be scared of what you're saying and be cucked by China and your boss, the NBA.
Let me find out LeBron is burning up co-ops somewhere. Yeah. And then he's gonna come out with LeBron with a capital O for organic fucking cereal and say, fuck him.
It's the Curlio.
Yeah.
I want to ask you. I want to turn this on you, Glenn, a little bit, because I was excited. I didn't know Correct Opinion Haver was a farmer, bro. I just knew you were a shit poster, I was very obsessed with this for a while, the agriculture thing, and I still am, and I want to get back into it once I get some land and stuff. But you, Glenn, have been blowing me up, being yo, we need to get this community gardens going. We need to feed people. What's
let's go
with you? So, I'm not saying you were into it, but it's just
I wasn't. I'm a grifter. I'm a grifter, actually.
Color me shocked.
Here's the thing. I'm totally without giving it too much information about my personal life, I have people very close to me who have always been into that. You know what I mean? And you being one of them and stuff like that. But the other day I was just thinking about it, or not, a couple months ago, I was like, dude, what the fuck? My whole thing is, and you guys are talking about systemic change and all that kind of stuff, but while this is happening, I don't view it as counterproductive to work around capitalism by buying up community gardens in where I live, right? Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is a city of sickos. I heard CRK on Fedpost say he lives in the neoliberal capital of the world. Disagree. I do.
Oh, New York City?
Okay. He might live in he lives in the rad lib capital.
Liberal capital.
I live in shit lib capital of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's bad.
It's terrible, dude.
Technological shakers and movers.
Horrible.
Yeah.
And it's just big tech, just soulless place, a place I grew up living, and I loved it. And a lot of what I loved was there used to be a lot more agriculture and cool stuff that you would see. We literally have a shopping center called the fucking Prune Yard, and it used to be a prune yard, and now it's Buca de Beppo.
Dude, my dad was driving fucking Chevy Bel Airs through those cornfields and shit.
Yeah,
now it's literally just fucking Cold Stone Creamery. And
so
shit.
what our city, the city I live in, I was looking at how do you start a community garden? And I'm thinking this is gonna cost an arm and a fucking leg. It's literally $150 a year to buy the plot. It's fucking nothing. And I don't know how it is in other cities, so I implore, I suggest everybody look if you're interested in this. And my thing is I don't know if I am fucking Dr. Green Thumb. I tried to grow some goddamn fucking microgreens or whatever we were trying to grow, just some herbs. Didn't work. I have a corner apartment in the sun, so if you guys have any tips on that, kind of tough.
Word.
But nonetheless, I want to buy I just want to get establish community before I do it, like with the people in these areas, people that I see like they're struggling and stuff, and be like, look, dude, do you like you guys, if I provide the stuff, like, do you guys want to do it? And to me, that's a workaround in capitalism, but I don't think it's counterproductive in the way a lot of workarounds in capitalism are.
No,
you know?
No. Fuck the leftists that are like, if like, and it's especially with, if I'm hitting crypto millions in the next 5 years, like, I will,
man.
Like please believe we're buying land and we're feeding people. Like, what else are you gonna do with that money? Like, buy votes and shit. It's like we have to, from the ground up, work with what you have. In the system that you're in while changing the system. And by doing that, you actually change the system, right? That's the crazy thing.
Yeah, because I want people to copy it. Yeah. That's the thing. Like, I don't want to have some monopoly on shit. I want people to be like, hey, that's fucking sick. Let me do that.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, that's tight. I have money. Let me buy 3 fucking plots for community gardens. Oh, that guy likes it. Oh, he, that's cool. And even if it is clout chasing, whatever, you're fucking feeding people, dude. You know what I mean? Like, that's the way I look at it. I don't view it as that, but some people could. There's this weird thing, and it happens a lot, like on the left, is kind of like almost like a nihilism kind of black pill thing where they're like, that guy just, okay, let's see how many followers you get from that, and it's like, look, man, we're trying to fucking like I literally want to feed people. I had my coworker go, like, I was telling him my plan, and the coworker's like, what do you get out of that? Like, maybe some fucking veggies. How about that, dude? Like,
I don't give a fuck about your intentions. I just want to know what your actions are. That's the whole thing. Liberals are way too fucking caught up in people's intentions, right? Intentions don't mean shit. What are you
centering black voices, dude? Are you fucking,
do you remember those gardens? Do you remember those little like snapshots from like, I want to say it was a George Floyd protest, where you'd see like people that'd be like POC garden, like did you
only, dude, only
like,
native.
Like, come on, dude. I guarantee you, a white guy made the sign. A white guy made the sign, first of all,
for sure, dude.
And like a guy that sits on his own fucking nuts on the subway, like just fucking beta male made that sign, and I don't know, man.
Spreading chair, dude.
We man spread over here, buddy.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I thought that was, I don't care. Like, just we got to make sure people can eat, man. And I want to fight for housing. I want to fight for healthcare. I want to do all that kind of stuff. But I literally want to keep food in people first.
We got to do all of it. You have to make sure that you keep a macro picture of the goal that you want in the end, and that you make your theory change to that, right? You can be doing whatever you want to on an individual level at any given time, but you need to keep in mind that we also have a broader struggle, right? And so when you're doing that, it's not counterproductive at all. If you're going to go around and you're going to buy up plots to common for people in your fucking community so that they can grow food on this plot that was just sitting there vacant, so they can then have not only fresh food that they may not have access to before, but also a fucking means for entering the economic sphere on their own terms, a way to be able to trade and sell food on their own terms, take control of their own economy a little bit. Even if it isn't their entire livelihood, obviously, it's something small. And that in itself is revolutionary in itself. It's a small step. It's counter to the mainstream of things. And what we need to be able to do is do that type of stuff. We need to be able to have people that have the means to need to be able to buy land, start co-ops, grow food, build community, and build proper communities, right? They need to start co-ops that are worker owned from the ground up and be able to actually have a communal experience. They need to bring people back to the fucking farm. They need to bring, maybe not the farm, but just to the community, the table, the gathering place, whatever it is, to build those connections, to get people involved. You need to increase in streams of engagement and within your community to get people the most amount of opportunities to get involved in something, whether it's food production, whether it's just entertainment, whether it's just gathering to eat food, no matter fucking what it is. Maybe it's building a greenhouse, maybe it's building a small house for some people, maybe it's building a bus station or fixing a pothole, whatever the fuck it is. This is something that's kind of like a mutual aid kind of idea in a way. But what it is that it needs to be thought of as not the main goal is mutual aid or the solution is mutual aid, but that's just a tiny key to the puzzle.
Yeah, and AOC shouldn't be doing the mutual aid. It's us that does that. Totally. So go fucking get shit for us, you prick.
Yeah. Politicians need to be doing the fucking politicians thing. We can't lose sight of the politics. That's a big problem with all this mutual aid talk, especially coming from these goddamn politicians. It's like they want you to depoliticize. They want you to unplug, and they want you to just stop focusing on making any type of real big systemic change, and just try to look changing at home and rely on your NGOs and support your NGOs. And let's carve out a bigger space in the market for private or non-governmental organizations and nonprofit organizations to fucking thrive, right? And they can solve all our problems. No, because those people are fucking sickos. And that's what a lot of our issues are driven by, is that people who are these people who are not from the communities that they're even in, right? I experience this daily with dealing with urban agriculture and going around to different urban agriculture farms and doing food access and securing food and stuff, is that you find that people are running these farms that don't live in the community, right? These organizations are not based within the city blocks surrounding it, or even a mile radius or two surrounding the farms. They're driving in from other places. These are generally college educated fucking people that are generally well off, bourgeois, bougie people. And so they come in and they start trying to tell people, this is what you need to do. This will be how we need to do it. We need to do this and that and that. Yeah, my business model, my plan, my this, implement that. People don't want to fucking hear that in the first place. And also, you're not going to be able to solve their problems no matter how well intentioned you are, because your actions aren't going to be the correct actions. You're not based materially in the situation under circumstances. You don't have a shared material goal with them exactly because you're not sharing the same space and the same circumstances. So if you insect and just kind of interject yourself into that and try to change things without taking the time to get into that community and get to know the people and bring the people from that community in to get involved, to hear their voices and give them positions of leadership within your organization in that area, you're not going to be able to do the work that needs to be fucking done. And you're going to end up hampering the work that needs to be done.
Yeah. No, those are like the people that those people you're talking about, the college educated, those people that like walk around with like the laptop where they hold it like a pizza pan around the laptop. And like, Raul, let's talk about the KPI. I think there are about 3 families that are starving now because look, I don't know what you're going through. It's like that fucking shit takes the soul out of everything, man.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. It's so bad. And what I'm scared of more than anything is we already know, like, look, if you listen to either of our podcasts, right, like, what's fucked up about COVID, the lockdowns and all that kind of stuff. This is something that's like really not talked about, is like we are going to lose our sense of community because in my own apartment complex, people are just fucking terrified of each other.
Yeah.
And you're like, dude, I could cough into your house if I wanted to. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, it's so weird that we lose a sense of community. And I'm scared of that, right? I'm scared of of just not even, if we don't start this now, I'm scared that it's going to drift off into like such isolation, bug man pod, eating the fucking bugs in the pod. No,
that's the worst part of all of it. It was just like, capitalism is inherently alienating, especially neoliberal capitalism, which focuses on individuality and your individual fucking experience and flourishing your own individual self and
sponsored by
all of this nonsense. Yeah, exactly. Like, that is inherently alienating. It's isolating. And we have been slowly moving towards work from home, online education, gig economy shit where you don't work in socialized settings anymore, right? Like, where you're no longer a member of a company where you have coworkers you can commiserate with. Instead, you're a private contractor and you drive for Uber, right? Like, you have no sense of solidarity. And you do maybe have sense of solidarity with your other Uber drivers, but you have no way to dialogue on that, right? And so COVID is just a huge and horrible fucking push. Like, we were standing on the cliff. We were already like wading through the murkiness that is like alienation in the neoliberal capitalism age, right? And then all of a sudden COVID came along and it was just like bag over the fucking head. We're driving you 50 miles down the road towards further isolation, right? And now we're not going to even be able to get back from it. Kids now, this generation who has spent an entire year, maybe more now, online learning, socializing with people through a screen, not having the types of relationships where they learn to share, where they learn to overcome people's differences, to work together towards a common goal, not being able to participate in group activities such as projects, art projects, or fucking sports or anything, to learn how to work together and how to humanize the other. People also are going to, especially kids, aren't going to be able to have a good understanding of the line and separation between parasocial relations and real fucking everyday real life relationships and friends. They're going to see their friend on the computer screen. They're going to see their teacher on the computer screen, and they're going to see Khloe Kardashian on the computer screen, and they're not going to know who's their friend and who's not, and what's the difference there. And that might be a little crazy to say or whatever. Like maybe that's an extreme, right? So take it a step back, right? Now we're going to have people who are going to be more reluctant to go out. People who were already homebodies, already isolated, are going to find more reasons now to stay home. I mean, we've already been forced to stay home for a fucking year almost, right? In most places, depending where you live. And so if you're someone who already struggles with like, you know, any type of like socialization issues or whatever, you now have lost a year of fucking practice or socialization, you know, to be able to keep that up. So you're going to be people are going to be coming back out of this so fucking weird, man. Like we're going to have people that don't know how to interact with people.
It's going to be so weird. Caveman shit, dude.
Yeah.
Caveman shit. Really just like grunting and shit. Like just, like, so that's what I'm scared of.
And it's a vicious circle too. And that, like you said, we're all online, we're all on the phone, social media, all that stuff. Obviously, us three are different, but
yeah, we're different. We're on Zoom. We're different.
Yeah.
We're talking on Zoom right now. That's different.
Yeah. No, well, what I'm saying is like we're different in the like for the normies, for the vast majority of people, they are feeling alienated and they might have beliefs, let's say about COVID lockdowns or whatever, but they don't want to rock the boat because they know it's just a screen share away.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
For their boss or their, you know, so it's everyone's going along. And then once you get out in the real, even during the pandemic, once you get out in the real world and you're just mobbing around and you realize, okay, that like the homeless people aren't dead in the streets, not from COVID at least, you know, maybe like starvation. It's, you know,
sure.
it's just
from
not,
the cold.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like things just aren't happening the way like the media and this kind of driven narrative is pushed to us. You know, the more you step out into that, and that's why the farming thing is so important, right? And the community gardens, because like that's nothing. I went through a serious depression when I was way younger, and what definitely was probably the most therapeutic for me was literally just getting a fucking farming job, right?
Yep.
Where I was just working my hands on the earth, and I could feel like my soul coming back into my body.
Oh, yeah.
And I was so shell shocked before, and I was like, oh man, this is the real deal, you know. And I'm not saying that that's everyone's path all the time forever, but that's like some real shit, you know. And
I think that's what I need right now. I think that's why I've been fucking feeling the way I'm feeling, dude. It's fucked up.
Yeah, I mean I went through that at the beginning of COVID, right? I've always been like, I went to school for a couple of years, college down in Alabama, and I studied sustainability, natural resources management. I always grew a garden and shit in my backyard. I was always into like permaculture and that type of stuff, but I was never able to make money from it, obviously. So I worked for a long time, just like at different fast food gigs. I worked at a fucking couple of hotels, spa, whatever. When COVID came along, I was laid off from my job I was working at. And I was just like, went through a pretty big paradigm shift where like, I had always been like, yeah, I want to get some land. I want to do like a little co-op thing. You know, I want to do a permaculture sustainability thing, give my friends a place to work on their passions, that type of thing, build community. But I was always kind of pushing it off. Like, you know, I'll be able to save money and I'll be able to kind of just like buy something and do it on my own terms. Well, COVID kind of forced me to take a look at the way that I was living, the way that people around me were living, and kind of come to grips with like the fact that my job, you know, just sitting, looking at a computer screen, booking appointments or talking to people on the phone didn't seem natural, didn't seem healthy. It wasn't productive for me in any way. I wasn't making anything, right? Like I didn't feel like I was really having a productive role in my community. And that was all just like bubbling below the surface, right? And that leads to alienation. And a lot of that is like alienation from our labor. Like, you know, you labor all the time working in a service industry or whatever, and you're not ever able to see your fucking product. You're never able to interface with the actual thing that you're putting your fucking time and energy into, right? And so I started kind of reprioritizing and really, really, really started focusing on community. Like I had a big thing with my family where like I went back and did like a thing to figure out all my ancestral roots and shit. Cause I was like, yeah, I'm family pilled right now. Like, I'm going to like try to build community and shit and delve back into that because we fucking need that right now, right? I was like jobless. I was like living here in a new city I just moved to. And I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do?
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be able to assimilate to the city like under normal circumstances and play gigs and shit. And yet here we are, COVID. So what am I going to do? So I just started thinking, and I started taking walks every morning. And I just walked by a fucking community farm one day. And I was like, you know what? I want to see what they're up to. Just walked up and started talking to them, started working there, was able to keep some produce, started just doing some food access shit on my own. And then was able to network with other farmers and other urban agriculture stuff in the area, and be able to kind of come into a food access position of sorts, just kind of directing, doing farm work and also directing food access for people. Doing kind of like sliding scale, pay what you can markets, cooking fresh meals for people. I live in a pretty poor area, so there's a lot of homeless population around. So we did a lot of like cooking excess food for the homeless population that lived right there in the area. And it really just opened my eyes to the power of food.
Yes.
The power of the community building power of food. Like even if you look at it on just a very, very basic level, take away food production and look at just consumption. If you sit down and you have a meal, you're incorporating all five senses. So if you sit down and you have a meal with somebody, you're tasting food, you're feeling the food, you're smelling it, you're tasting it. Sorry, you're looking at the food, you're looking at the people. You're forming connections and bonds and associations on so many levels. If you can share a meal with just a fucking person on so many levels subconsciously that you wouldn't even think about, because you can associate a flavor, a taste, a feel, a smell with that person that you may have never met before, that you now just met for the first time. And just looking at it at that level, the power of food to bring people together and build strong connections between just individuals is so strong in itself. And then when you start looking into it on a fractal level, and you start looking at how like we were talking about before, how coming together to work to cook a meal or to grow food for food production or any of that is almost a perfect model for solidarity, because you're coming together, acting on your own self-interest. You want a good fucking meal. You want something that tastes good for your nourishment. You're meeting people at their lowest common denominator, the lowest common thing you have in common. You may not be the same color, same height, same gender, same sexual orientation, whatever it is. You both need to fucking eat. And you both need healthy food. You both need shit that's grown that has vitamins and nutrients in it, that's grown healthily. And so when you're able to meet people like that, it humanizes the other, right? You're there together, and you find that even though you're working for your own selfish needs, you need a meal and you want to make a good meal. When you come together and make a meal and cook with others and you share a meal, you're all working towards a common aim. You're all working individually for your own individual needs and your own individual interests, but they all align for a common aim, which is to have a good fucking meal together, right? So even at that very basic level of cooking food, it's a great model for solidarity. If you can look at that and the connections that are made around the food, look further into production, and you can see at all levels, food mimics and reinforces communal bonds, from microbial levels in the soil to the level of the plants and animals and the worms working all together to decompose matter into soil that then plants can eat. All these interconnected, all these connections, everything's working together. And then you look and you eat the food. You all had to cook it. Someone had to grow it. Someone had to raise it. Someone had to cut it up and put it on your plate.
Adds a human element to everything.
Exactly. It's a human labor. It's a labor of love in that instance. And you're just meeting someone's basic needs. It's a very powerful thing. And then that mimics even within your own fucking body, the bacteria within your gut and within your body that's breaking down that food, that give your proteins the right, that are able to process food, the bacteria in your mouth that processes food down to the size for your fucking stomach to be able to eat it. It all mimics each other from the bottom all the way up. And so when you look at that, you can see that it's a tried and true method for building community, not only at a local or cultural level, but naturally throughout all ecosystems and all communities.
And when you're face to face with that, when you can't hide from it in a fucking Whole Foods store or some fake co-op or anything, but when you're actually growing food with people, when you're cooking it with people, it's hard to be depressed. It's hard to be alienated.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard, it's like you have to try. You have to really, and it's just great. Let's just think of all the therapy we go through and all the crazy, just the during all this COVID time. Do you ever do like your YouTube search and like every third row it's like, hey, you got free YouTube therapy for you? Like YouTube's like shilling you therapy.
Like, oh my god, dude.
How about we just like, anyway, So
it's
anyway,
like go outside, get some fucking sun in you, like make a fucking real product, have a role that's valuable in your community, that feels like you're being productive and helping yourself and others. Like these are the real keys to this alienation that causes all these, all these like mental health disorders that are like minor depressions and stuff. A lot of it comes from unfulfilling lifestyles spurred on by fucking capitalism, right? Like therapy ends up being just a giant cope or a way to like reavert that attention. It's like, oh, you're like isolated and stuff. Oh, you just have social anxiety. Here, take some Xanax and like forget about it actually. And then like you can be like a different version of yourself when you go out. And it's like, no. These are valid fucking concerns that's making this person feel this way. Yeah. And it's going to continue to replicate and cause this. So we need to address those concerns.
Yeah, it's like, I'll take the Xanax. Thank you very much. But also, no, excuse.
Do you have any psilocybin?
Coming, dude.
But no, what I found interesting, and to tie it back to what you were saying at the beginning, it's, if you look at it from like a Marxist lens, and I'll admit I'm not the most well-versed in theory, but if you look at it from like a Marxist lens, it is cool to like, I mean, the whole idea of like Marxism and just what I like the most is basically whoever's closest to the product, right? The closest of producing the actual product, right? Is supposed to be the one that owns it and supposed to be the one that profits from it or whatever, right? So what like, I think that's good, right? I think that's a good way to like introduce people into just that mentality, right? Is to just make your own food, right? Like make your own food, cook it. Like right now, I guarantee you, there are some people during like lockdowns who have like taken up cooking. I think that's really cool.
Totally.
I mean, I think that's like a really good like step, and I think that helps a lot of people with social anxiety. But there's a lot of people who are just like fucking smashing that Uber Eats, like, oh, $5 credit, fuck yeah, dude. Yeah, you know what I mean? I'm doing that, and it's like there's no way you're happy. You know what I mean? There's no way you're happy, and there's no way you're not consuming ethically. You're actually like doing the worst form of food consumption is ordering from like Uber Eats and DoorDash and shit like that.
Yeah.
You're somebody's like,
you're stealing from the restaurant and the workers and the delivery driver.
No,
literally, it cuts all those pools down. Yeah.
And not to mention, it's like literally just the least natural lifestyle of all time. Like
exactly,
like you're sitting inside looking at a fucking screen all day, inside, not getting light, not getting natural air and fucking natural shit that's in the air and in the soil, and then you're pressing a button on your phone to order some fucking like mass-produced food.
It's never healthy,
and it's never healthy.
No one orders healthy food on
absolutely
DoorDash,
not.
dude.
And then people wonder why they feel like shit and why they're depressed and stuff, and then they don't consider the fact of what they're putting in their stomach and what they're eating and how they're fucking living. And it's like,
and then they're arguing with people who have podcasts like the Fedpost telling them that they're fucking, you know what I mean? Like telling them that they're problematic and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that's why people come at you guys crazy, because they're door dashing too much. That's just my theory. But nonetheless,
it cuts a little too deep, that one.
Yeah, I will say, because I know Sai's got some obligations, and I think we're at a good time here. So I was really, really glad you were able to join us for this, man.
Totally.
Really good.
That was a good one.
No, it's good. This is exactly, I think that we even as a podcast, we kind of get trapped into our own kind of subject matter, and we lead into it a lot. We talk a lot about COVID, a lot of kind of stuff like that. I try to be a little constructive, though. You know what I mean? I try to be a little constructive. Try to at least for people that don't know what the fuck to do right now, like or just something. This is just a small step you can take. Small step you can do. So that's good. I'm glad you were able to join us for it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was great.
Won't be the last. Yeah, likewise. It won't be the last.
No. And then, we can make it somewhat of a recurring thing where, just down the road, get back into what we're doing here. I definitely I'm doing this for myself, saying this on audio, so I actually follow up on it as far as community gardens. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm like we don't have a huge listener base, but there might be somebody be like, hey, Glenn, you fucking prick. Like, why don't you buy, you know, what's up with those gardens, dude? You know what I mean? What's up with that? So if I was just telling myself to do it, I might not. But
oh, there you go. Yeah,
being able to say
you got some accountability now.
Straight up accountability.
Totally. That's good.
Like my accountability buddies over here, man. And,
if we come back to it in the future, I'll probably have a little bit better formulated thoughts on it as well.
I don't. Whatever that shit that you just said, like
you're
minutes ago,
fired.
I was like, there was like weird. I kind of astral planed a little bit. It was cool.
Oh yeah, likewise. No joke.
That was good. So
watch, Glenn's just gonna go full. He's like, yeah, I think I'm gonna get into community gardens, and there's just like straight up weed kingpin 3 years in. Like, just like,
integrity farms and shit.
Are you feeding people? Yeah, straight up integrity.
Yeah. No, I honestly, sure. Randy Marsh has been my idol for a long time. So
feed people and get them high, baby. Yeah,
that's exactly what I want to do. So, COH, I don't know what the hell your Twitter handle is now. I'm still used to the old Adam Driver Hotep picture, so I don't. I'm not gonna lie. It throws me off a bit when I see the It's Always Sunny kind of remake of the.
Well, I'm trying to keep it low key a little bit because I don't want to.
So you don't have to say it. That's fine. You don't have to.
All you need to know is that you are indeed a haver of correct opinion.
Yes,
I think
it's still correct. So again, follow at the Fedpost. All right, how about we just say that?
Yeah, you'll see my shit on there.
You'll see the shit on there, and listen to the Fedpost. And if you're joining because you listen to the Fedpost, I appreciate you guys because that's definitely good to get a few new listeners from that. So appreciate that, and thanks for coming by, man. You got anything you want to say before we go?
No, that was really great, you guys. I just had a blast,
man. No worries. All right. Well, he's at CryptoSci. I am at Glenn Rockney. This is at Rare Candy Pod 1. COH, thanks for joining us, man. We'll do it again sometime. And that's it for us.
Cheers.
All right.